All right, let's slowly start the session. Welcome everyone to Hardware Security 2 session. We have 3 nice talks in this session, and the first talk is about higher order time sharing masking, and Dilip Kumar will give a talk. Floor is yours.
Thank you. So this work is an extension of a paper from last year, so I'll spend 5 to 10 minutes explaining the previous paper because I need context for explaining this work. So I am Dilip, and the other co-authors are Seaman, Joseph, Benedict, and Ingrid. So I'll start by briefly introducing why low latency masking is a bit difficult. So one way of masking is gate level masking, where you replace every AND gate and with a masked AND gate and every XOR with a masked XOR. XOR is easy, but AND is not so easy. So you have different types of AND gates, for example, DOM INDEP, which is the most popular. And then you have HPC gates. They are composable secure, but also they come with higher costs, and particularly in our case, it also increases the latency. So typically when you build a circuit, you have to chain multiple of these gates together. And every AND gate, depending on which gadget you use, typically introduces one or more cycles of latency. So when you have a large function like an AES box, then you have to have multiple layers, and that also increases the latency. By large, I mean large algebraic degree. So there are some previous works on low latency masking. The two popular ones, I think, are from 2018, which is GLM, and 2022, which is GHPC. So usually there is a theme that whenever you try to reduce one metric, the other two metrics increase a lot. So when you try to reduce latency, then the area and the randomness usage increase by a lot. And most provide first order security, and the only exception to this is LMDPL, which is very efficient, and it's also more efficient than our scheme. By the time of writing this paper, it was only limited to first order of security, but I think in this session you will also see higher order. So brief introduction to TSM. So as I said before, it was published last year, and it has a single cycle of latency, so it doesn't really depend on the number of inputs or the algebraic degree. So how it works is you process the first share before the registers, and then you mask them with random bits, you split them into two, and then you combine them with the second share after the registers. And also it satisfies some formal guarantees like SNI and Piney. So the benefit of TSM compared to previous schemes, or why it's more efficient, is because of two things. The first one is every SBox has multiple coordinate functions. For example, Prince has 4 and AES has 8. So with TSM, you can commonly compute the terms that you use in different coordinate functions. And that reduces the area and randomness usage because you have less registers to store the intermediate state. And you can also reuse logic, because if you want to compute a higher degree term, you can also use the lower degree term to compute the higher one. And that also results in less area. So I will quickly, well, the AND gate is not really a good example to apply to a TSM, but it's easy to explain. So I'll just use this as an example to explain how it works. So here you have an AND gate, 2 shares each, x times y, and then you have one unshared output. So the first step would be to split them into 2 output shares with some randomness. But this is still not secure on hardware because you can have glitches. So we insert registers in between. And then for composable security, to make it Piney and SNI, you refresh the inputs. So these were the results from the previous paper, where you see around 45% increase or better results in area compared to the state of the art. And but the randomness is also higher, but it's future work to reduce this randomness cost. So another example is the AES box. Again, as I said before, LMDPL is still more efficient. But here you see a bigger difference in area and randomness usage. Like it's reduced by a lot, and this is a direct result of what I discussed before. Like you can reuse terms for the output functions, and also you can reuse logic. So now coming to this paper, there are two contributions for this paper. The first one is extending TSM to higher order. So, and the latency is also fixed to the order. It doesn't really depend on the algebraic degree or the number of inputs. So for first order, TSM was 1 cycle. For second order, HOTSM will be 2. For third order, 3, and so on. It's also composable secure. It's Piney and SNI. And the next part of the work is we present a trade-off where we increase the latency by 1, but also it results in a reduced area and randomness cost, and that's by a lot. And it's also SNI and Piney. So I will first talk about the first contribution. And on a high level, it's the fundamental concept for this is very similar to TSM, where you process every share in a different cycle. So the first two, share 0 and share 1, which is identical to TSM. And then for every additional share, you add a register stage, and then you process it afterwards. So, and as a result, yeah, for D order security, you need D cycles. So again, I will use another AND gate to explain how this works, because it's easy. So the first two stages, it's similar to TSM, where you process the first and 0 and 1 share of the inputs, X and Y, and then the final cycle, you add the last share of X and Y. So the first two cycles are identical to TSM, but instead of one output, now you have 3 outputs. You have X0 plus X1, Y0 plus Y1, and X0 plus X1 times Y0 plus Y1, but they're all split into 2 shares each. So now, how do I calculate the final result? So I have these 3 outputs, and then I have to multiply them with the final share, which is X2 and Y2. So yeah. So I'll go step by step. So first, once you have the outputs, the first step is to refresh them and store them in registers with some fresh random bits. And then the next step is to add an additional share. And then the final step is to process the final share, which is X2 and Y2. So for this, the inputs are again refreshed, because for Piney and SNI. And so it's combined with each of the 3 registers from the previous stage. So you get, from the top register, you get Z0, and then from Z1, and then Z2. So, and this method is recursive. What I mean by that is, like, once you have a first order TSM, you can get second order, and from second order, you can get third order, and so on. So this is how it goes. Like, first you process the D shares of the input, which are HOTSM D minus 1 block with a few register stages. And then you refresh the outputs. And then you introduce an additional share, which is composed of just random bits. And then you combine it with the last share. You refresh it, and then you process it with the last share to get the outputs. So we have theorems and proofs in the paper, but I will not be explaining this here. And we also have some tool-based evaluation using silver, and that's only for small gadgets, because it's not really possible to verify larger things. And we also have TVL results for this. So at the time of writing this paper, there was only one other scheme, which was GLM with a latency of 2. And then, as you can see, the area is reduced by 40%, and randomness is reduced by around 80%. So the next contribution of this paper comes from an idea from the previous paper. So I have 2 S boxes here, Prince and AES. So one has 4 inputs, the other has 8 inputs. And if you notice, like, going from 4 to 8, the area and randomness increases a lot, around 14 to 30 times increase. So the idea was to take a K input TSM block or HOTSM block, and then to split this into 2 parts, which takes K by 2 inputs, and then to combine them to produce the final outputs. I'll talk more about the cross-mult part later, but it has 1 register stage, and because of that, you have a latency increase of 1, but also reduces the area and randomness by a lot. So security-wise, the HOTSM blocks are both SNI and Piney, but the extra block, it's not. It's only NI, but that's fine, because when you put them all together, it becomes SNI and Piney. And it also helps with keeping it efficient area and randomness-wise. So I will explain with an AES box how this works, how the cross-multiplication works. So you have 8 inputs, and 8 outputs, and then I have listed the ANF form for the ASS box for the first 3 outputs, coordinate functions. So the first step would be to split the inputs into 2 parts. So you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So A, B, C, D goes to the first part, and E, F, G, H goes to the second part. And then you process them with TSM blocks in parallel, and these are identical instances. The only difference is that they have different inputs. So the output of this is all product terms. So A, B, C, D, you can get 2 power 4 minus 1, 15 product terms. And then same for E, F, G, H, all product terms. And then the next step, which is the cross-mul part, is to go through every term in the ANF and see which set it belongs to. So for example, A, B, C, D, E, G, H, you have A, B, C, D from the first set. So you can take this one from there. And then E, G, H, you can take from the second set output. And then this is a DOM-like construction because you have 4 domains, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1, and then you multiply them. And then you iterate through every term in the ANF of the output. So again, for D, F, G, H, you take D from above and F, G, H from below, and then you multiply them into 4. So for example, if it only belongs to one of these 2 sets, if it exclusively belongs to E, F, G, then you just have one of these and you add them to 2 domains instead of 4. So once you are done with this process, like you exhaust all the terms, you just use one random bit to store the outputs. And I'm only talking about the first order for now, but second order it's easy to get. And then you register them, which increases your latency by 1. And then you combine them to produce the outputs. And you get something like this. So you have the 2 TSM blocks, and then you have the cross-mult, which is 8 different instances in parallel for each output. And again, as I said before, it's both SNI and Piney. The proof is in the paper. I'm not going to explain it. Yeah. And we use this to make a full AES. So I said LMDPL was more efficient before, but also it needs evaluation and pre-charge cycles. So they have to duplicate the S-box twice and alternate between the evaluations. That's the result. The area for LMDPL is higher than ours. Our randomness is higher, and HPC is like the most efficient area-wise, but also it has higher latency. So everything has a trade-off. Yeah, so these were the TVLA results. So on the left-hand side, you have PRNGs off. The topmost trace is the power trace. And then top to bottom, it's univariate first, second, and third order leakage results. And it leaks as expected when the masks are turned off. And with PRNGs on, it doesn't leak for first order, but it leaks for second order. And that's also as expected. It's not surprising. For second order ASS box, the process is the same. You split the inputs, you have 2 identical instances of HOTSM, and then you combine them with a DOM-like construction. And it has 9 domains because 3 cross 3. It's again SNI and Piney. So for formal verification, as I said before, both for this area latency trade-off and also for the HOTSM, we verify small circuits, and it passes SNI and Piney. And we use ProLead for the S boxes, but that's only for probing security, and for mask verif for some of the properties, SNI, SNI, and stuff. So so these are the S boxes, 2-cycle and 3-cycle second order ASS boxes. Again, it's the same thing. Left-hand side, it's PRNGs off, and right-hand side, it's PRNGs on. You have the power and the univariate results, and it leaks as expected on the left-hand side, but with PRNGs set to on, you don't see any leakage for the first order or the second order. And same for the 3-cycle second order ASS box, similar leakage pattern. And this is the multivariate test result. So the lower triangle, which you see here, that's with PRNG set to off, and the upper triangle is with on. So again, it's PRNG set to off. As you can see in the heat map, it leaks, and then with PRNG set to off, on, it doesn't leak. So conclusion, the first contribution was we extended to higher order. and latency depends on the order and not the algebraic degree. And it's because we only work with the ANF of the equations and not the structural properties, it's applicable to arbitrary Boolean functions. And the resulting circuits are both composable secure, Piney and SNI. So thank you. Questions?
All right, thanks for the talk. Is there any question? I guess we have time for 2-3 questions.
I have one question. You said your construction was SNI, and which variant of SNI are you considering? The single output SNI or the SNI for?
Single output, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any more question?
One more question. Since your construction can be applied to the multi-output Boolean function, like the the Prince S box,
Yeah.
Do you think it makes sense to claim the single output as an algorithm?
Yes, it does not, but well, we initially tried to frame it as a different notion where it's improved upon Piney. So when you probe an output for Piney, you can have some shares to simulate it. But in TSM or HOTSM, you don't need any shares at all. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice talk, thank you. Do you think it's possible to modify your construction that maybe the first share is already released a cycle earlier, so also calculated, so that maybe if you compose it, you could shape up a little bit of...
Can you go mention the slide which...
No, in general, I mean, you have all shares ready at the same time after D cycles or D+1 cycles. Could you maybe modify the construction that you get the first shares already a cycle or 2 cycles earlier, the second one cycle earlier, then you could maybe compose the rounds and saving 1 or 2 cycles per round?
Yeah, but you don't get the correct outputs until the final share, right? Like you have to process each share, and you take a new share, and then you combine it with the outputs of the previous thing. So
yeah. I mean, if you modify that, maybe you could have the result, also that the first share is already ready 1 cycle earlier. Then you can make the linear part on the first shares, while the others are calculating, and then you start already the next S box with the first share, and then the others are coming in. No.
No. But also it's round based, so we have everything in parallel. All the S boxes are in parallel, so I don't really see how it would benefit.
Yeah, but all S boxes have the first share already ready as 1 cycle earlier.
No.
You don't
I don't see how
okay.
that's helpful. No. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any more question? Maybe one question from my side. You mentioned about the trade-off of latency and area. So you add 1 more cycle to save area. Can we extend it further? So I add 2 more cycles and then
I thought about it, but the savings are not as dramatic as it is for just adding 1 cycle. So I didn't see a point of like extending.
But if I start with the larger input size, so let's say 32-bit adders,
Yeah.
then probably you see some benefits, or it doesn't really matter about the size of input?
I haven't thought about it a lot, so I cannot answer.
All right.
So
Okay. If there is no more question, let's thank the speaker again. Okay. So the next talk is about pushing the area limit of composable gadgets, and Sharon Wang will give a talk.
Okay, thank you for your introduction. Good morning, I'm Chaoran Wang from Shandong University in China. I'm pleasure to introduce this work, which we abbreviate as OBS, spread by Ouroboros. In this presentation, I will walk you through our motivation, kernel contribution, gadget designs, composition strategies, security analysis, and experimental validation. Side-channel attacks explores unintended physical leakage, such as variance in power, timing, EM, and temperature, to recover secrets without breaking the underlying ciphers. So the masking is a well-established countermeasure. A sensitive value is split into shares and processed independently so that observing fewer than all the shares implies no information. In various resource-constrained interactive cases, such as the LT cards and NFC cards, the area overhead introduced by masking is often more critical than the latency. Therefore, our researchers focus on the area effect solutions. For hardware, we adopt a robust T-probing models that account for glitch, transition, and coupling. And for the composability, we care about the define of penny property, which states the following properties. That the linear operation can be composed trivially, but the nonlinear gadgets requires randomness and special operations. This definition allows us to modularly build security circuits from secure subcircuits while ensuring that the process domain isolated across domains. And many other different gadgets are proposed for different secure and application cases. So we can make different kind of circuits like low area and or latency efficiently. So in the low area challenge, we revisited some older gadgets and find the following situation. The composable gadgets with low area properties are the following. The COMA relies on sharing a large area shared randomness, such as CHES or the LFSR, but is limited by the unrolled Belvin Altrim published in the last year. Which introduces a low area of random PRNG, and the HPC2 option, which uses fewer randomness sources, but incurs a large area due to many registers. HPC3 option is another gadget. It reduces registers count, which saves areas, but requires more randomness. So this leads us to a key question: Is there any design that can reduce both the number of randomness and the registers? So we revisit some of the circuits and to address this question, we revisited this classical gadget design and extracted common cost of area, the common cost area of the area overhead, which gets to our OBS designs. These figures are for these classical gadgets like COMA, HPC1, and HPC2. So here is our optional kernel, the chain circuits. Based on these commonalities of that gadgets, we observe that they often exhibited chain-like circuits like this. To satisfy the penny property, 2 layers of registers are introduced in some case, and with the XOR masked before the register to imply the masking. And a portion of combination logic like A, B, C are used, but in the second stage, the combination B, there may have some more complex logics in the second stage. So this abstraction is shown in the diagram on this slide. Our current option is targeted that how can we to optimize this circuit to a lower area way. This is our situation. So this is our solution. The ring circuit. We use reuse a resistor over cycles with a control signal selector, and we make so that we can make the register time divisions. In this circuit, we can make the data path as the old one from A masked with R this cycle. Stored into the register in a cycle, and the next cycle the data path went to B, and combined with the R with another randomness R as the last R prime or R prime 0 and R prime 1. Then the data path is written back and selected by the selector signal and then it is remasked by the same part of R, but the randomness is in this cycle, and then the data path is went to the register again and live in the part C. So in this way we can make the circuit behavior the same as the chain cycle in the last slide, and we can save a register which is the best area lost in the circuit. And this way we can also reduce some combination circuits like the masking R part and emulating the randomness as and emulating more the random source use one sources across cycles. However, this using this way is not cannot impossible the common security. Although ring circuits reduce areas, it introduces more leakage risks. For example, the glitches. For example, the older RA and RB in the old circuit is independent, but in the ring circuit we can get them in the R with transition with a transition glitch. So the ring circuits needs a glitch and transition robust security is a new risk in these circuits. Our GAGIS designs address these combinations, these combined thread models, as G is 1 and T is 1. Here is our OBS GAGIS design. This is the first order design, which operated over 2 cycles and compressed 3 stages. The first stage is to refresh the input signal, the imported signal B, and and restore it into the RB resistors. And in the next cycle, we do the multiply to multiply all the shares together and make the and do the mask and then restore to the registers again. In the second stage, the combination we merge the political products and as one and to be the output. So this stage has this gadget has 2 cycles delay and which controlled by a control signal as the laser shows. And fewer registers and randomness sources are used. In this circuit, not considering the elements, we need 4 registers for the gadgets and some other registers to derive the randomness. The register number is the same as the DOM scheme, which is also the area limits in our title. In this way, we can also use only one fewer with one randomness source to derive randomness, which is lower than the common 2 randomness way. And in this way, we can also compose to confirm the correctness. Okay, from the first order OBS gadgets, we build another second order OBS gadgets. Stage is about the same as the first order OBS, but in the 2 order OBS, we have 3 multiply terms each branch. The masked and in this way, we masked the AI, BI with randomness as the sum of the randomness are 0, and we keep one multiplied term. The AIB I masked B I plus 1 is unmasked to reduce randomness requires. And another multiply requires randomness, but only in the second circuit. So the same as the ring circuit case. So we use the randomness derivative circuit to finish this work. The random derivative circuit is ensuring derivative randomness to satisfy the equation, and we propose we isolated the randomness derivation from the main computation with randomness to prevent glitch leakage in the randomness circuit side. Separate this circuit from main circuit we also use the ring circuit to hold signals for maximize use of the randomness sources, like the figure in the right. So here is the secure proof of the secure proof of our OBS gadgets. When you use G, we can see that when you use the glitch extended probing, we can probe at least the most no more than 1 domain. And with the T process, we can also the values are all be masked. So in this way, we can see that the OBS gadgets is secure in pen and paper. We also give 2 extensions of OBS. First is TOEFL OBS as multiply is also with with additional function of XORing other shares. We proposed to offering this extension. We offered two variants as synchronized way and the reused way. In the reused way, we use the RAX in the past and in the first stage, so that we can save more registers to reduce areas. And the field level and another extension is the field level multiplication. In the Boolean extension fields, we use the field randomness source, and we achieved a competitive area. In the prim field, we replace the AND with a multiply and move the XOR gates into an AND or sub for the correctness. So here is our area comparison of the Boolean and the gates. We compared with these schemes, and we can across first and second order. And we also compared with randomness and without randomness case. We can see that OBS constantly achieve a lower area and fewer random source than the HPC variants, and delivering up to 20% reduction compared to the smallest HPC 2.0 in total. The next is the area comparison of Boolean extended field. We can see that because the HPC2 and its variants count to the field extension, so we only compared with the HPC1, HPC3 option, and HPC4. In this table, we can see that the OBS maintains its advantage by using fewer sources and achieving competitive byte area. As the secure order increases, we can also see the area advantages still maintained, which means our derivation technique preserves the area benefits. Here is the Gaggis level comparison, and then we have to compose our Gaggis into a circuits. For the pipeline construction, we use the compress tools to form our new circuits and replace HPC 2.0 in the circuits with OBS. The register folding, then we introduce the two more options techniques as the register folding. We can fold some some register chains like this to a ring circuit in the and save the areas. And the two cycle period is was alternated by the control signal across layers. In this layer, we use the control, and in the next layer we use the not control signals. And the other technique is to remove some registers. Because our scheme has a 2-cycle period. We can when they fill the input shares all in the first in the period, we can remove the first layer registers so to save more areas. So in this so after this design, we use the BP and can write AES box to evaluate our new schemes and multiply PRNG settings. We can see that our scheme is can reduce about can reduce more than can reduce some areas. Another challenge is cloud gating constructors. We use the agma-like float to achieve this challenge. But there is another question. The old HPCs for cloud gating can remove some pipeline registers to reduce areas. But for our scheme, there must new element registers to synchronize the circuit for the correctness. So to reduce this impact, we give another strategy as frozen to use another control signal as the enable Aein to froze the output signal to the REX until the cloud gating is finished, so that in the different layers, the randomness won't in the different layers will not be used at the same time. So we can also reuse this randomness in different layers, but this may include more transition leakage. Thus, we insert bubble circuits between the different layers, so that we can avoid the transition leakage across the adjacent tips. After this technique, we achieved a better area due to the lower random source but with a larger latency. To confirm our security proof, we also used the silver to verify our circuit. However, there are some difference again. The silver cannot improve the circuits, the ring circuit like us. So we did a transform. We extended the ring into a stage netlist with a virtual path and a zero generation to prevent the unexpected compiler. So after this, we enable silver to verify transitions like this by simulating the transition with a glitch on the extended structure. We also do the experimental validation and use the TVLA. And in this, we can see that in the first order, with 100 million traces, we have no leakage. But to the second order has the leakage as our expected. And the second order OBS, which is in the bottom left, we can see that no first and order to second order leakage, and there is a slightly leakage in the third order. To achieve further exclusion the role of each randomness source in the second order, we performed the TVLA without selective removal. When we remove the R, the first order security can still be held, but the second order leakage is will be significant in 25 millions. And when we remove the other random source, we can still have the similar conclusion as the other randomness. When we remove all the randomness, the circuit makes a significant leakage in 1 million transitions like this. So we also use this way to confirm the to show the platform setup is valid. Okay, so this is our summary and future work. We also, but it's too late to read them again. So thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you. Probably we have time for one question. Maybe I asked a question. If you go back to the last slide in the gadgets part.
Which one?
Go back. Back. Okay. So for a AND gadget, for first order AND gadget, how many fresh random bits you use? It's 2 or it's 1? So if you look at the first row here in OBS, yes. So how many fresh random bits you use is 2?
How many? What?
Fresh randomness, random mask.
This line.
Yes.
OBS has 2, and the OBS has 2.
All right. Okay.
And,
Thank you.
And half than the others.
Okay. Thank you so much. So let's thanks the speaker again. Okay. The next talk is about the constant cycle hardware private circuits, and Daniel will give you the talk. Yeah, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you for the introduction, Aein, and hello, everyone. So let's start with the motivation for this work. In practice, we face the issue that an adversary might observe the power consumption of a device during its operation, and then, based on the collected data, might extract secret information that is used during the processing. And in the recent years, many countermeasures have been introduced. And here the objective shifts toward security guarantees that we try to achieve using so-called formal models. And the most predominant approach for this is masking, and in this talk it is Boolean masking. And here many approaches are gadget-based, which means that we take an unprotected design and then we take gates or small subcircuits and replace them by proven to be secure counterparts. And the downside of this approach, though, is that it can be very expensive in area and also in the latency overhead, which is the main focus on this talk. Okay, so Boolean masking is applied on the algorithmic level, meaning that we try to remove the dependency between the data being processed and the power consumption that is observed by the adversary. And we do this by splitting a sensitive variable into d+1 shares, where d shares are chosen randomly and uniformly distributed, and then the last share is computed based on the d shares and the value to be protected. And then a circuit is considered to be d-order secure if an adversary requires d+1 shares to obtain any information. Now, when we implement a countermeasure, nonlinear functions play a critical role and have to be implemented with caution because they need to recombine the shares in some way to achieve functional correctness. Okay, so if we want to prove the security of a scheme, then we can take a probing model, and the most basic one is the d-probing model, where an adversary places up to d probes in a circuit, and then if no tuple of d probes gives us any information, then the circuit is considered to be d-order secure. However, this does not take into account the physical defaults that actually happen in a circuit. So, namely, these are transitions and glitches that we also cover in this work. And the follow-up work, the robust deprobing model covers transitions with so-called transition extended probes. So these probes also observe values in 2 consecutive clock cycles. And for glitches, so when we feed some signals into or some values into a circuit, then the signals might toggle back and forth multiple times due to different signal propagation delays in the wires and the gates. And here, the probing model relies on a worst-case assumption, meaning that, for example, in the image on the bottom right, if an adversary observes the output of the circuit, then this model assumes that glitches might propagate from all of the primary inputs or all the register outputs. So the adversary learns also all of these extended probes. And this is why we use preventive register stages, but this increases size and also accumulates latency, because if we now use a gadget-based approach and we place registers in each gadget, then in a cascaded design of these nonlinear functions, the latency will accumulate over the depth of the circuit. Now, last year, the robust but relaxed probing model was introduced by one of my colleagues, which is based on some observations that we made in a previous collaboration. And this model moves away from this worst-case assumption. So essentially, it introduces conditional, transitional, and glitch-extended probes that take into account the exact data and the gate behavior of the combinational logic. And it does this by determining 2 different values, which is determined differently for every unique gate. So the first one is the G value, which is determined by the glitch propagation function. And this one indicates whether a glitch is generated at the output of a gate in the circuit, or if glitchy inputs of a gate are going to be propagated through this gate to the output. And then the conditional value f takes this G value into account, and it also considers the previous inputs and the next inputs, also the inputs of 2 consecutive clock cycles. And then when the output reveals any information on the input, this model also does the backpropagation that we know from the robust probing model. So I don't want to dive into more details of this model, but I want to make sure that the intuition is clear. So consider the example in the middle of the slide. Here we observe the output of an AND gate, and both inputs are set to 0. And then one of the inputs switches to 1, and this is even glitchy, so it might toggle back and forth multiple times until it eventually stabilizes. Now, because B is tied to 0 and is glitch-free, the propagation of A is going to be stopped at the gate, which means that Z is going to remain 0 as well. And the glitch is eliminated, meaning that the conditional value is 0, and this model stops the backpropagation at this point. And what this allows us to do is that we can evaluate different schemes that would otherwise be insecure in the robust probing model. And of course, if we have a gadget that is proven to be secure in this probing model, then we can use composability notions like Piney to also prove that arbitrary compositions remain secure. So one of the schemes that is insecure in the robust probing model but is secure in the relaxed but robust probing model is LMDPL. And as you can see on the right side, this can be divided into 2 layers, where the upper layer is executed in 1 clock cycle and the lower layer is operated in another clock cycle. So this is actually an exception in the literature where the latency does not accumulate, as inside the layers no registers exist. And this, however, is limited to the first order security, and we wanted to extend this to arbitrary security orders, which is the main motivation for this work. So why this does not accumulate latency, this is because of the dual-rail precharge logic that is used in the operation layer. And this was actually originally introduced as a power equalization technique. And here, variables are represented by 2 rails. So the first rail corresponds to the original value, and the second rail is the negated value. And this gives us 2 valid states during computation. And then when we execute the circuit, we have 2 phases that we alternately apply. This is the precharge and evaluation phases. So basically, every intermediate signal in the entire circuit is reset in the precharge phase. And we can do this because we construct the circuit out of AND and OR gates. So if we feed zeros only into an AND gate or an OR gate, the output is going to be 0 as well. So every signal is going to be reset. And in a consecutive clock cycle, we do the actual evaluation, which computes the function. Now this gives us a glitch-free circuit, as toggles are only into one direction during each phase. And as this is glitch-free, this is a nice property that we would like to have for the probing, for the relaxed but robust probing model, as it restricts the backpropagation. Okay, so for the CCHPC gadgets, we took several DRP components, out of which we constructed the gadgets. And the first one is the DRP end, which is equivalent to the WDDL end, and this is glitch-free and operates on dual-rail logic. And for the multiplexer and XOR, we came up with some custom components based on NAND gates only. We did this because we can save some area overhead with this. And yeah, you can see the, both of the components in the middle of the slide. Yeah, so just to give an intuition, if we are in the pre-charge phase and we feed a 0 vector into any of these gadgets, then this barrier of NAND gates will evaluate to 1. So all of the intermediates are set to 1. And the second stage of AND gates is again going to evaluate to 0. Meaning that if we are in the pre-charge phase, we feed zeros into the gadget, we get zeros out of the gadget, meaning that this properly pre-charges and can be composed in a DRP circuit. And if we look at this exhaustively, we can also see that it is glitch-free. Okay, so now let me introduce to you the CCHPC scheme. This is a gadget-based scheme which is provable secure in the relaxed but robust probing model and the Piney notion. It is layered into D+1 layers, where the first layer operates on the single rail representation and all of the upcoming layers operate on the dual rail representation. And then we can straightforwardly derive the linear CCHPC gadgets. The first one is the NOT gadget, which just swaps the rails of the last share, effectively inverting the unshared value. And the XOR gadget simply implements the XOR function on in layer 0, and the other layers take the DRP XOR, which I just explained on the previous slide. And a similar approach is done for the multiplexer. Okay, so now let's look at the critical component, the CCHPC AND gadget. And we can see the first order design here on the right side. So as I said, this is divided into 2 layers. The first one, the upper one is the layer 0, which operates on single rail, and the lower one on dual rail. So now the trick here is that we execute these in separate clock cycles. So in the first clock cycle, we apply shares A0 and B0, which completes the computation of Z0. And then in the consecutive, and also the preprocessed values P are computed, and their propagation is then stopped in the second layer because A1 and B1 are still in a pre-charged state. And then in an upcoming clock cycle, we can apply A1 and B1, which effectively selects the correct preprocessed value and completes the computation of the second share output. Now, if we look at the second order design, we can see a kind of repetitive structure. So we appended another layer. And here we have 2 multiplexer-like structures where one takes inputs that originate from layer 0 and the other one has inputs that originate from layer 1. So again, the propagation is stopped. We can execute another clock cycle, and the correct intermediates are selected to compute the third share output. As this is for arbitrary security orders D, we need D times D+1 divided by 2 random bits, and we follow an execution sequence that is separated in time. And the trick is to utilize the pre-charging to restrict the signal propagation. And this gives us a constant cycle scheme, because if we now compose these gadgets, then every layer executes basically in a single cycle, but with an offset. And if we apply De Morgan's law, so we can invert rails of primary inputs and outputs of each gadget, we can also derive different functions, like an AND, NOR, or OR. And of course, the algorithm for generic orders, correctness, and also security proofs are described in detail in the paper. Now, because this is a very crucial aspect of the scheme, let's again look at the execution sequence. So at the bottom, we have these layers and also the preprocessed values. And we can see here that every layer provides some preprocessed value to all of the consecutive layers. So if we start the execution, then all of the dual rail operating layers are precharged. And then we consecutively execute them because all of these preprocessed values are stopped at the multiplexer-like structures during the evaluation, during the precharge, and then during the evaluation are forwarded. And you can see this on the top right as well. So we evaluate the layers every consecutive clock cycle, and then we need to do the same, but in a descending order for the precharging phases. And this leaves us with d clock cycles until the output is ready. However, for the next input to be processed, we need 2d plus 1 clock cycles. So we can optimize this approach by reintroducing registers. And as you can see on the top right, we again have d clock cycles for the evaluation. However, we can now reset all of the layers that operate in DRP at the same time. And the reason for this is that the output of the registers is glitch-free, and also the reset state does only depend on the reset signal, which allows us to do this optimization. Now we optimize this even further with a CCHPC-PL variant, which pipelines the layers. So here, basically, the concept is that we can feed every second clock cycle new input into a composed circuit. Why every 2 clock cycles? Because we still need to do the pre-charge phases in between. And then, because of these register stages, every intermediate pre-processed value is maintained, so we can do the execute the execution sequence as shown on the top right for consecutive inputs. Okay, so we combined this with the duality approach, which is already known from the LMDPL scheme, to minimize the latency for the round-based design even further. And we can see the AES core on the left side, so basically layer 0 for the round function and also for the key expansion are seen at the top and the bottom. And in the middle, we have all of the other layers that operate in DRP. And as you can see, the round function is duplicated. So meaning that if we execute this core, then we start in a pre-charged state for the whole circuit. Then we apply the inputs, and the first round instance can evaluate. And then directly in the next clock cycle, the second round instance can evaluate. And simultaneously, the first round instance can already be pre-charged. So this allows us to do consecutive evaluations in every clock cycle, such that one round instance always pre-charges and the other one evaluates, which gives us an AES with 11 plus d clock cycles of total latency. So here the latency increases with the security order. Let's compare this to existing approaches. Of course, the most important one, LMDPL, as it has some very similar functionality. We can see that we have similar area requirements. However, we extended this for arbitrary orders. And then if we look at other approaches like HPC2, HPC3, and the recently proposed Compress from last year, which mixes this with several optimizations, the area requirements are far less. However, they also need way more latency. So in the end, this is an area latency trade-off. We also conducted some experiments, so starting with tool-based evaluations. Here we took ProLead as this is the only tool that supports the robust but relaxed probing model. We did this with all of the gadget configurations and also a Boyer-Peralta S-box for the first 3 security orders. And then we conducted practical experiments, univariate, bivariate t-tests for the S-box as well, and for the AES with duality applied, also for the first 3 security orders. So here we have exemplarily the results of the first order masked AES with duality applied. On the top we can see a mean trace which clearly shows the round computations or pre-charging. In the middle we have the t-test results for the first 3 orders after 100 million traces, and all of these do not indicate any signs of leakage. And at the bottom we can see that also over the number of traces there is no trend towards this 4.5 threshold line, indicating that we need many more traces to exploit this in practice. All right, so let me conclude this talk. We showed how to exploit the restricted signal propagation in DRP logic. And we introduced the CCHBC scheme, which is a low latency focused scheme, and achieves a constant clock cycle count. It is provably secure under the robust but relaxed probing model, and we also provide an AES architecture with 11 plus D clock cycles, which we evaluated with tools and practical measurements. And of course, proves correctness, many more details are provided in the paper. Our implementations are also publicly available on GitHub. And with this, thank you for your attention and feel free to ask any questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there any question? I guess we have time for 2-3 questions. Okay, maybe while you're digesting the paper, I can ask the first question. So while I was reading the paper, I was wondering if we can remove this trivial composability from this and probably simplify the circuit. Do you think that's possible, or adding fresh channels is necessary to guarantee the security?
What do you mean with simplify?
So, so having less area overhead, basically.
And you want to do this by?
So, I mean, basically, if you go back to threshold implementation, for example, you don't have trivial composability, but you are still first order secure, right?
I mean, this might be possible, but we actually didn't take a look at it. So.
Okay. Yep.
Hi, thanks for the talk.
Mm-hmm.
So you consider the probing model for your security. What about more realistic models?
Yeah, we didn't consider. I mean, you mean the random probing model, for example? Or?
Oh yeah, even noisy leakage too. Do you think it might be prone to horizontal attacks or other more concrete attacks than probing?
We didn't conduct anything of this actually. So we also did the binary tests where we see that we don't have leakage over multiple points in time, but we didn't consider any other model.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions? If not, let's thank the speakers of this session again.
Thanks.
We are going to have a lunch break, and thank you for attending.